I call the regular city council meeting January 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. to order. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And City Clerk, would you do roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Copeland is absent. Tom Baylor?
Here.
Kathy Sherman?
Here.
Jeff Gard is absent. Melina Meyer?
Here.
Is here. Ann Schaefer?
Here.
David Allison?
Here.
And David Gleason.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Move to approve the regular agenda. Second.
Are there any changes to be made to the agenda?
Yes.
Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I would like to suggest that we add maybe item 16A. We're going into executive session to speak about the South Harbor rebuild, but I know we do have an ordinance on that, and I think it would be nice to get kind of an updated revisit of exactly what that ordinance was or is and how it helps the community, and refreshing for myself and for the public that are listening. I understand we can't talk anything legal about it, but we can talk what is public record.
I take that as a friendly amendment.
You just want to come out of the executive session and discuss just the ordinance? Is that?
No, I would.
No, before.
Oh.
So people understand what it is we're even got on the table here.
So maybe it would be 15A?
Sure.
Come.
Okay. And then I'd also like to suggest when we go into executive order, we ask if the harbor master and public works director wish to join us, to invite them, since they're the ones that are working on all the grants and moving forward with the harbor rebuild.
Is that okay with you, City Manager?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Well,
Delayed.
They're
Sorry.
delayed.
Hearing,
on the phone, you were both for the approval, yes?
Yes, I approve. Yes.
Okay.
okay, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on. Disclosures of conflicts of interest and ex parte communications. Hearing and seeing no hands go up. Communications by petition and petitions from visitors. Guest speakers, do we have Dr. Saunders on from the incident management team?
I think so.
Yes, I'm on the phone. So everyone, I'll give a quick update. We have 17 active cases. We do know that we have a high number of people in the community doing home tests. We recommend that anybody that has a positive test at home come into one of the local clinics to confirm that result. That being said, many people are not coming in and confirming those results, which is okay. We know when we talk to our national and state partners that this is happening everywhere, and people that have a positive test result do tend to change their behavior and still quarantine for those 5 days. So we feel that we're still in a good place in the community. Our best defense against this continues to be vaccine, and the booster dose is very, very effective and provides a robust protection against hospitalization. We encourage everybody to come and get their booster dose or get their initial vaccination series. Right now, the cases that we're seeing are impacting all age groups. We know during the third year of the pandemic, we entered this two and a half years ago, and had a lot of unknowns. It was very scary. At this point, this is a known pathogen. The community knows how to respond, and because of that, we are working with the medical response team to start demobilizing, and the state is also demobilizing their contact tracing. For the next few months, we will see a lot of those emergency response parts of the pandemic going away. We will continue to monitor hospital status and bed availability, and if there is ever a shortage or a concern to the community, we certainly will raise the line. I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions for Dr. Saunders? On the phone, are there any questions for Dr. Saunders?
Yeah, this is Councilman Schaefer.
Councilman Schaefer, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just wondering how our testing capacity is in Cordova right now. Our testing capacity remains good. We have antigen and the rapid PCR test, as well as capability to send to the state. We also do select some samples to go to the state for sequencing, but sequencing is not done or results on the patient level, though, and takes several weeks to get back. We certainly assume with the nationwide trends that what we see is the Omicron variant. However, we do not have any sequencing results back confirming that. And are at-home tests available in Cordova? And is there any way to make them available if not? Yes, they have been pretty widely available, I believe, at both clinics. And I think we still have a stockpile at our pharmacy that we have been distributing for free to people that are close contacts or travel related. If they, for whatever reason, their schedule doesn't allow them to come in to get a test, we have been providing home test kits as well. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Saunders? Hearing none, move on to audience comments regarding agenda items. And a reminder that it's 3 minutes per speaker, and please come forward and speak into the microphone since we have folks on the telephone. And I see no one rushing to the front.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny.
Ken Jones, 514 Sunnyside Drive. And thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm mainly coming in to speak to you about the item 16 executive session. I just wanted to, I guess, reiterate some of the things that I said when I was a member of this council, and that this needs to be taken very seriously. This challenge that is going to be coming is a real thing, and I believe to my core that what the city did was in the wrong, and that the city does not have jurisdiction to tax these transactions that happen out on the fishing grounds. Currently, the city's legal team at the time had said that we can have the fishermen have an agreement that their fish should be delivered here because of who they fish for. That's totally wrong. The major processors have canneries in multiple different communities. They have floaters, and the fishermen have no control over where those fish go, but yet the city's still taxing them. This last year, the canneries, they assessed this tax on deliveries that went to tenders that went to Kodiak. Fishermen have no control of those fish once we sell them to the cannery. And the point of sale is at the tender, not within the city's jurisdiction, the taxable jurisdiction of the city limits. So I have no problem with the tax if it's coming over the dock here in town. But you cannot tax these deliveries at the tenders. And I think that it is a very winnable challenge for not for the city, but for the challenging side. And I would just caution the city to get outside legal opinions, not from the, I believe that the existing legal department of the city has given some bad advice on this issue, and I would just urge you guys to get a second opinion on this matter before moving forward. I do not think it's too late for the city to avoid a lawsuit. I think this is fixable, but action needs to be taken here pretty quick. And I don't want to see this derail or interfere with our harbor rebuild. And I would just urge the city that, if we need to roll this funding source back, let's just raise our harbor rates and make the harbor users pay for the improved harbor. That's the only thing that makes sense. It's what I said when I was on the council, and it's what I wish we would have done from the first place. So, thank you.
Good evening. Mark Froneffel, Shoreside Petroleum, 100 Ocean Dock Road, Cordova, Alaska. Here to comment tonight about, I guess we're going to call it the Science Center building on the breakwater. Shoreside Petroleum, since they bought it, Orca Oil from the Glassons, have been trying to put a floating fuel dock in the harbor. So they worked with Harbor Master Muma, continued to work with Harbor Master Chanella, and I've continued to work with Harbor Master Chanella since I took over in 2012 to put a floating fuel dock in the harbor. We worked with Randy Robertson, Helen, and every city manager and city council since we've been here to try to find a suitable location. Currently working with Mark Keller in the South Harbor rebuild to try to find a suitable location to put a floating fuel dock in the harbor. We've put in several letters of interest for all kinds of locations. Currently, we have a letter of interest for the Forest Service dock. That has gone pretty much nowhere. We don't know where the lease is with the Forest Service or with us or with anybody for that particular location. We were under the understanding that the Science Center building was going to be no longer suitable for occupation or because of its current condition. So the Science Center moved out to the current location that they're building at now, and that would be a location that we would be able to possibly put a floating fuel dock in. The letter of interest is still with the city. We're still currently interested in putting a floating fuel dock at one of those locations at the entrance to the harbor. That's where we currently stand. We're currently still interested in developing a project with the city and the current harbor rebuilds. And we look forward to working with the city to develop a location that we can continue to provide services to the city of Cordova for their harbor rebuild and to provide services, whether or not they're fuel, whether or not they're oil recycling, whether or not they're sewage. There's all kinds of different options that we can provide, but we have to have a location that's suitable. So if we lease it for a brewery, then we don't have the option to develop a long-term project that Shoreside Petroleum certainly has been one of the leaders to try to get this project on the go from pretty much 2009. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any others in the audience who would like to come forward and speak? Seeing none, chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions. Dr. Saunders still on for CCMA report? No?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Okay.
So the hospital continues to work to provide affordable, accessible, and quality care. One of our bigger focuses recently has been mental health. The pandemic has caused a significant increase in mental health problems, increasing substance abuse. We recently hired a case manager that is going to work within the community to help tie individuals to any resources that are available in the community. So part of our collaboration over the course of the last couple of years has opened up a lot, I think, is improve the network between the hospital and NVE and the Family Resource Center in the city. So we're excited to have this new case manager that will be working across all entities to help tie people into resources and find the right fit for individuals. We also are developing or have hired and are working to develop an abuse recovery peer support program. So both of these individuals are working to help and provide comprehensive substance abuse programs, counseling, and case management in Cordova. We're certainly working on a lot of other things, but I thought those were the things we'd highlight today. In terms of last year's finances, we are currently working on the year-end close, and things are looking very positive for the hospital, with last year being a solvent year for us, and looking forward to that in the next couple of years as well. I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions for Dr. Saunders online? And in the room? Seeing none, thank you, Dr. Saunders. And do we have a school board representative on the line? Hearing none. And student council report, I don't believe we had one, right? Okay. So moving on to the approval of consent calendar. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Okay, so on the consent calendar, Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Gard is absent, Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
There are no consideration of bids, so we'll move on to reports of officers. The mayor's report is written and in the packet. Susan, do I need to read it into the record or, okay. So Mayor Copeland could not be here because of a conflict with CEC board meeting, but there is a written package covering numerous topics that he's been working on. City manager's report, Helen.
Thank you. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that the IBEW union and city management have been working together to craft a union agreement to cover the next couple of years with our union employees, and we've made substantial progress. And I think tomorrow we will have an agreement, and at such time as that comes to bear, we will bring it to council for ratification and approval. Similarly, the IBEW will be taking it to its members, so there's still an opportunity for change. Nothing will be finalized until both bodies approve. So that will be coming at the next council meeting at the latest. So I'm really pleased with that. There was some question earlier by a couple of council members about the issue with our prior insurance broker. And I want to let you know that's been resolved. We were able to reach agreement with them and have paid a sum of around $24,000 to buy out the remainder of their contract. And it is anticipated that we will recoup that payment through reduced broker fees that are being put upon city by our new broker. So we're very excited by that. I feel really good about the relationship we have with the new broker. They're being very responsive. We have weekly meetings, and it is a better relationship. So let you know about that. Yesterday, I received the draft audit. We'll have that for you all at the next meeting. We're still finalizing and tweaking, making a few corrections, but that document will be ready and prepared for you for the next meeting. You probably heard that at the last meeting, you were reviewing two competing proposals for a new brewery here in town. The State of Alaska Alcohol Board met yesterday, and they did approve No Roads Brewing through a vote, not a vote, through a drawing. Excuse me. So that will proceed, and that's it for me. Thank you. Oh, I did want to pass the baton over to Samantha Greenwood, who is going to give an update on the Snow and Harbor projects. And also, I want to give an opportunity, I think, yes, he is. Kevin's here, and he wants to give an update on the document that's in front of you around the open house for the master plan for the Copper River Highway.
Okay, so I'll give you a quick snow update. It's not snowing. We emptied we didn't empty in the entire snow pile behind the library and museum. Oh, the Pioneer Square building. I have to stop calling it the old museum and library. And we have worked on the pile behind the high school. With this wetter weather, it's easier to stack and ramp. And so they've done some work down there. We did get a lot of snow moved. We're working on piles. And now it's time to figure out, get the ice out of the drains. And we're working through that where we can, trying to move piles that are melting and creating glaciers. So we're still out there, lots of sand moving. And then the harbor update, I wanted to introduce you guys to Mark Keller. He came to us highly recommended as soon as we started talking about this huge project we wanted to do with the harbor. His name kept coming up, and everybody said, he's great, he'll help you out, just give him a call. And when it seemed like it was going to get to be a reality, I gave him a call, and from the first, well, I sent him an email, gave him the option to see if he wanted to talk, and he sent me his phone number, said, give me a call. And since that time, we've been moving forward with this project, super knowledgeable. Some of his experiences are wide, from Alaska, from rural Alaska, Hoona, to the lower 48, to all over the world. He's done projects from $10,000 to $2 billion. He does recently finished 2 projects in Hoona. He was the manager for the first phase, and they asked him back for the second phase. He lived there while that project was going on. He understands the complexity and the logistical nightmare sometimes of working in a rural community. He likes Alaska, so that's always good. He is going to do the entire update today, which unfortunately the PowerPoint wasn't going to work, but I did print it out for you all, and he'll just talk through it, and he'll tell you when he's going to hit the next slide. So, sorry, I touched.
Don't touch it.
And so, Mark, are you on the line?
I'm on the line, Sam, you bet.
Okay, this is Mark Keller. This is the city council, and in the room is Tom Baylor, Dave Gleason, Kathy Sherman, and Dave Allison. And on the phone is Melina Meyer and Ann Schaefer. And Helen, the city manager here, city clerk's here, and we have a few people in the audience, and Tony and Curtis are also here. So you're on.
I'd like to say thanks for taking some time to let me talk about the South Harbor Restoration Project and kind of what I've been doing and potentially could do to move this project forward. I was pleased that Sam reached out to me in December, and we were able to find a way to get started on some of this work, and we've got some activities going on with an RFP, some geotech work done to get someone on board to help us do the engineering reviews that are going to need to be done with whatever submittals we get from the design firm or the build firm. Right now, I'm serving as sort of a project development coordinator until we get to the point where we have a full contract, and then depending on sort of the needs of the city and what the staff and the council want to do, I could be available to be the project manager for the city's interest. And in that role, I would only represent the interests of the city during design and construction. I would be dealing with a design engineering firm or a contractor in any way or capacity, but really just kind of focusing on what it is you want to have delivered and how much we can afford to do and the time frame that we can do it in. So those are what I see as my roles. If you could flip to the next page, it says design build contract. I'm sort of jumping in here. In talking about the project and learning about it and sort of reading through the narratives and looking at the environmental information and schedule and the funding that's available, it struck me that if we were going to be getting this project done in one season, the only way I could see accomplishing that would be through a design build approach. And I'll talk about sort of the 3 major time phases of a design build contract, and then maybe we can get into a little more detail. But there's a procurement phase, and I think one of the things that pops out quickly to me is we have an opportunity in a design build project for greater collaboration between a designer and a builder. And so we're getting the benefits of both sets of thinking. And I think what we need to do is make sure, and that's what I've done on other projects, is there's a very clear evaluation process for the proposals and the selection process that we would come to find a design build team that could support Cordova. And in getting this done. Yeah, and let me just interrupt what I'm saying here by saying, if anybody has any questions, hold up your hand or do something to draw my attention and ask the question, and I'll certainly try to respond as best I can. But I think during the procurement process, it's really important, and I found it, over many projects over many years, to make sure that we've got a fair process, that it's open to all the competitors that are qualified, and it's very transparent so that we don't have a risk of creating a conflict of interest or getting a protest about the award of a contract. And those are the things that we would work on real hard in getting that procurement put together, getting an RFP out on the street, and then evaluating. Yes. I'm sorry, I keep hearing a little noise, and I don't know if it's somebody's voice or.
No.
I'll go forward.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark, unless you hear. I'll monitor the room and let you know if there's questions.
Outstanding. Thank you. I appreciate that. The second big phase of the design build approach is contracting. We want to be fair in the contract, and by that I mean we want to make sure that we've created a balanced contract, one that isn't going to be onerous to the design build team, one that's going to be fair to the city, and that has a balance between the interests of the city and the interests of the design build team. And we want the contract, excuse me, to be clear, readily understandable. You don't need a contract that's so full of lawyerly language that, we can't understand what it is we're asking to do, asking the design builder to do, and everybody understands it when we sign that contract. And I think the contract needs to reflect sort of the unique aspect of Cordova and the South Harbor project. There are a lot of unique aspects. Just to touch on the things that really have struck me as everybody looked at this is, do we need to get this project built between fish seasons? And when we can move the boats out and demo the harbor and take out the old floats and get new ones built. So, and we've also got a lot of sources of funding for this. And the sources of funding are going to be, are going to create some challenges for us in terms of how we're going to report it, when the money becomes available, what the cash flow is going to look like, and how that impacts the timing of the project. But I think we can handle that. And we just need to know what those things are and have a plan of approach. And then we got sort of site constraints. The harbor isn't going to get bigger. We're going to have to fit in the floats that we want and do the most economic job we can do to make that happen within the confines of the South Harbor. And then, we've looked at, and Tony has mentioned to me more than once in our conversations that, we've got a lot of traffic that goes down the fairway, and we've got a lot of traffic in the uplands area. We've got parking constraints, so we've got people trying to launch boats. All those things kind of add up to the constraints that a contractor is going to have as they move forward. The other topic about a design build contract is really the one that's the most important to you, and that's the delivery. And you want to make sure that we've got team members that are familiar with doing design build work, that have done harbor projects in Alaska, and especially what the leadership of the team looks like. And that is the leadership of the firms that are participants in the design build team, as well as the leadership of the people who are going to be on site, the project managers, superintendents, pile bucks, that sort of thing. We want to look at those people real closely. And we also want to understand what their plan for logistics is. We all know that, getting material up to Alaska can be a challenge, and maybe even more challenging lately because of supply chain issues. And we want to deal with that. We want to make sure that the team that we would select would have the right equipment to do the job, in terms of cranes and vibratory hammers and all the other tools that are needed to make that happen. I think you would want a team that, you know, is committed to timely communication, and we'd want to make that an element of the proposal coming back from the design build teams. We'd certainly want to understand what the design management process would be from that team and how we would go about sort of doing collaborative reviews using an independent marine engineer to make sure that calculations are appropriate for the conditions there and that they meet the needs of the city of Cordova, of the harbor. And then finally, we'd want to understand clearly what the construction schedule would be. We've got a very specific window that we can get this work done in, and we need to make sure that the contractor, the design builder, would have enough equipment and enough people to get that to happen between the fishing seasons that we would have available to us. So those are the things that I think fall into sort of the design build contract. If you want to turn to the next page, which is the design build compared to design bid build piece. And I would say I have a bias about design build. That's an area of practice in construction management, project management that I've been active in for the last 13 years. And so I have a strong bias in favor of design build for getting things done and getting done in a timely way. The process for a design build is, you know, we select a team through a competitive RFP. We look at the project planning, and really some of that falls on the city of Cordova and your team in the House, is what exactly they want to have built and what they want it to look like conceptually. That would be something that we do with in the RFP, and then we would, as we go through design reviews at the 35, 55, 95%, make sure that that's the set of plans we're getting back that meet the needs of the city of Cordova. And I think, too, knowing that we have a variety of different funds and different fund timing, we want to make sure that we've got a project cost and a contractual commitment that's consistent with the funds available. We don't need somebody who's going to come in and overbuild the project or underbuild the project. We want to get it so it's just the right size to match the funds that are available to the city of Cordova to move this forward. The other thing that's important is in the design build project, we've got a lot of coordination between the designers and the builders following the city of Cordova's review processes and making sure that they understand what they're getting. And that's a single RFP, you know, we can pull together and get out to the community who might be interested in submitting. I've talked to 5 different firms who are interested in putting together a team and putting together a proposal for this project. They're anxious for us to get an RFP out on the street, and I've got a kind of expanded outline of that I was going to share with Sam and Tony and Curtis tomorrow once I get another chance to take a little polish on it. But if we go to a design bid build process, it would require 2 RFPs. The engineers would basically create a complete design, 100% design, and then we would put that out on the street, and then we'd have our bid documents, and the contractors would come back and offer bids based on value and price and that sort of thing. And the city would then be able to select who the builder would be. But the problem with that is that whole process takes more time than we have time available, given the fishing season and how we're going to get the funds. And my experience with design bid build project, which is sort of the traditional way to do things, is the owner or the owner's representatives or people who are staff of the owner wind up mediating between the design engineering firm and the contractor if there are disputes and if there are differences of ways to approach things. And that takes time and a commitment from your staff to make that happen. if I haven't confused you unduly, then I might have, you could turn to the next slide, next page you've got. It's called preliminary schedule. And this is kind of just a real thumbnail for you, but we're planning on having an RFP out to the design build firms early in March. And early in March is an indefinite date. That's as best we can come up with and say early in March. We'd want to get proposals back by the end of April, maybe a little earlier, but we'll have to talk to the community of design builders to see what they can actually do for us. Make a selection based on an evaluation that would be done by the city of Cordova. Have a contract negotiation, and I think to expedite things, we would want to put a form of contract in as an addenda to the RFP for the design build firms, but get all that done by the end of June. And then we would have a design build team in place, ready to go. They could start procurement of long lead items, start fabrication of things like floats and that sort of thing as soon as the city issues a notice to proceed, called NTP there. And I would expect that we would be able to start the demolition of the existing harbor once we have all the fleet out of there, probably mid-November. And that's a constraint date based on needing to get some permits and approvals for incidental harassment agreements and environmental approvals and that sort of thing. But I think we could start that work mid-November. We would actually start construction of new facilities, I think, not later than mid-December, and then have substantial completion by April of 2023. So that's just a thumbnail. If you go to the next page of your handout there, you'll see. Pardon?
This is Councilman Schaefer. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah.
So is that substantial completion of a phase of the project or the entire project?
That would be the entire project. That would be the entire project with our plan right now.
Okay.
It's aggressive. I mean, it's extremely aggressive. But, we've got a narrow schedule. We've got to figure out a contract team that can do that for us. Anyway, go to the next page. You'll see a Gantt chart, basically a kind of a work schedule with kind of two-level work breakdown structure. It kind of outlines how we would go about doing this in terms of engineering and design and getting the environmental and permitting work done, bid out the project and have an RFP on the street, get the construction accomplished and do project closeout. And this is a very, very preliminary schedule. We would, in the RFPs we get back from design build team, they would have a much more detailed schedule, probably to the 5th or 6th level of a work breakdown structure. And from that, we would be able to have a critical path through the schedule so we'd know what the key items are that need to be accomplished. And this, like I say, this is just a push pass at a preliminary schedule. We'll get it better when we get proposals back from the design build teams. And with that, Sam, I can sort of close this out and take questions or do whatever is appropriate next.
Mark, if I may, this is City Manager Howarth. Could you also describe a little bit about the economic benefits of not having to do change orders between a design build and a bid build proposals? Because I understand that is one of the other really great benefits of a design build contract.
It is a substantial benefit, and where change orders come in a sort of traditional delivery process is the design firm will put together the documents. They'll have been bid by a contractor builder, and there will have been gaps in the design. There will be things that need to be interpreted in terms of what materials, how they would be used, and that sort of thing. And what would happen there is the city of Cordova would have to sort of litigate that and mediate and come to a decision. And the city would basically be on the hook for an unknown amount of change on a change order. The benefit with a design build approach is that we get a firm fixed price from the contractor. And that's the contract that would be held to. We would have liquidated damages in there for the team, depending on what our schedule requirements turn out to be and what our quality expectations are. So we don't have the risk of having to deal with change orders in the gap between design and construction. And there always are gaps. I know contractors have worked with contractors over many decades that don't bid on a job until they find the first 6 flaws in the design, so they know what the change orders are going to be. They can come in with a low bid and then come back and you can really hammer the owner with additional change orders at a fairly high rate of compensation. So that's a short thumbnail.
Does anyone on the phone have questions? And then I'm going to go around the room. Okay, hearing none. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, thank you for your report there, Mark. It was very helpful. At our last meeting, our staff led me to believe anyway that permitting could take a year or more, and you didn't seem to be as worried about the permitting if you're going to get an RFP out in April of this year. So can you talk to us about permitting a little bit?
Sure. Sure. We have, the city of Cordova has, I say we because I'm thinking of myself as part of the team, but we have an or a contract out with the Solstice Limited, and they are working on securing permits, and they are working on an environmental assessment that we will need. The permits will involve incidental harassment agreements. We will have to work through NIMS. And ultimately, it will go to Department of Transportation and the Army Corps of Engineers in order to give us the final permits to do the work we want to accomplish in the harbor. So that train has left the station, and we're working on that right now.
Okay, thank you. Sounds like you're much more confident than we were a month ago.
Confident, we're going to have to work at it, but I think when you look at South Harbor, it's not a new project in open water that hasn't ever had facility infrastructure built in it. We're talking about restoring and improving existing infrastructure. And from what I understand, we don't have a huge issue with the whales or the sea lions and that sort of thing that I experienced down in Hoona, where we had, humpies coming back every day taking a look at the work we were doing, and we'd have to shut down construction while they were there. And if you had orcas come in on the north side of the harbor and go out on the south side, we had to have marine mammal observers out there, and they got within a certain distance of the construction site. We'd have to shut it down until they left the area. I don't think that's going to be the same situation in Cordova. At least that's the approach we want to take with the regulatory agencies and the permitting agencies.
Sure, thank you.
Councilman Gleason, Councilman Baylor, questions, comments?
Yeah. Hey, Mark, this is Tom Baylor. I guess I'm a retired general contractor in Cordova, and I would totally agree with your design build contract concept for sure. Anybody had any doubts, we built the Civic Center with the other way. It didn't go so well, design build. I think it's important that we have a good quality project coordinator, and it sounds like you fit the bill. I'm going to ask you a question, and probably maybe you'd answer this question over the phone with our city manager, but you've been doing this a while. Your point about making sure our legal contracts were easy to read and good. I'm sure you have some lawyers that you've worked in the past on some of these projects, and I know as a councilman I would be interested in hearing perhaps some options. I don't think our legal team is all that strong in that area, so maybe we can have a discussion with our city manager, and she can get back to you on that.
Sure, and I have worked with a number of attorneys, both in Juneau as well as in Seattle, who I think might be able to support this with the city. But that would be a decision that, you know, the city would make in terms of who they would want to have as legal representation. But we can do that, and I'd be glad to talk to the city manager about that at her convenience.
Thank you, and I would suggest that to my fellow councilmen that we kind of go down that path. At least look.
Any other comments? I'm going to take a quick turn, although Councilman Baylor stole my thunder. Also, as someone who has been through a design bid build project, which was horrendous, and being on the facility committee for the Science Center and watching them go through the design build process, I've seen the differences. So I'm very happy about this. The schedule is very aggressive, but I know the competency of the people around here, so I'm hoping that we can get started. And thank you for your time, Mr. Keller.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you, and I will say it's a little awkward kind of talking to a disembodied group of folks, and I hope in the near future to be able to come up and be a real person and sort of, you know, answer your questions in person and sort of understand what your concerns might be and be able to address them, you know, one-on-one at a future council meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I think we're going to have the city planner. Or,
You had a
oh, sorry.
question?
I've got some questions, but I was going to let Mark go. Is that
Okay.
so? More for staff.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Kevin, yes. Would
So-
you, with just one more thing, Kevin has an update he'd like to provide on the DOT
Well,
Copper River.
I'm sorry. I'm still on the harbor.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, so you have a question for Sam? Go, for me. Got it. Sorry,
Okay.
confusion.
So, and you don't have to answer this now, but I would like, what is council's role once this gets going? Maybe define our role. What is our, you know, are we going to be getting updates? Who would we be getting updates from? If the public's got questions, concerns, who would their point person, so to speak, who would they, obviously we don't want council people and community running down telling these contractors what to do, but, and then are we going to get monthly updates? And what will our role be in, you know, you can get back to us on the next.
Yeah, great. We'll certainly provide that, and we'll hopefully answer your, and you can give us your expectations as well, and we'll integrate that into whatever we have. If we're on this very aggressive timeline, obviously, things will be moving quickly, and there probably will be opportunities for you guys to need to weigh in as a body, but also certainly updates would be regularly provided. And the community is going to expect that, so
Right.
that will be a big part of our role, too, will be communication and progress reports.
And I would roll the harbor commission in with all of that too.
Oh, yeah, I think they'll be very involved.
All right. Thank you. Kevin.
All right, good evening. Just wanted to let you all know that the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities has formed a committee for the Copper River Highway Transportation Master Plan. The purpose of this master plan is to identify transportation needs along the Copper River Highway corridor from milepost 0 to 51. Additionally, a goal of this master plan is to assist the community of Cordova and the state of Alaska with securing funding for projects identified in this plan. This committee is going to be meeting 3 times this year. I will be sitting in on the committee as the representative from staff. The first meeting is actually next Wednesday, and there will be a public open house at 5:30 here in the Cordova Center. And we have put that on our Facebook and our city website, and the Alaska DOT has sent out mailers to the community as well. So just wanted to let you know that that's going on, and spread the word. And if you have any input on things that you think should be put in this plan, pass that along to me, and then I can work on passing that along to the committee. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Will these meetings be on YouTube so we can go back and look later?
I have no idea. They're ran by the Alaska DOT. They're the person running the meeting, so I don't think we'll be using our YouTube system. I'm not sure about that, though. I can find out.
Thank you.
Is, I know White Shed's not part of the highway, but it's DOT, is that going to be talked about too? Because some of
No,
that.
this is solely master plan for the Copper River Highway itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Councilmember Meyer?
Oh, go ahead on the phone, Councilman Meyer.
Just a quick question, clarification. For the Copper River Highway, mile 0, that's down here, what does that start at the ferry terminal or?
Yeah, the ferry terminal is 0.
Okay, thank you. And it goes through Main Street as well?
Yes.
Okay. This is Councilman Schaefer.
Go ahead, Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed the mileage markers that you said at the beginning. It goes mile 0 to how far out will be included in the master plan?
Out to the $1 Million Bridge, so mile 52.
48, yeah.
Oh, all the way.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, city clerk's report.
Sure. I've been away for a little bit and just catching up in the office, but obviously the election is looming. March 1st is the election. 3 council seats and mayor. We have 1 declared candidate for each of those right now. 2 school board seats and 2 CCMC board seats, and we have no declared candidates for that as of yet. The last day to declare is Monday, January 31st. Early voting, again, since we changed Title II a couple years ago, the early voting is 3 weeks prior to the election now, so it'll start Tuesday, February 8th. There's also the $2 million water loan as the ballot prop on the election. All the information is on the city website and posted around town. There's been newspaper ads. The radio will be starting an ad, I think, next week. And correspondence in the packets, as you, I know, are all aware, there's been a lot of correspondence. Sometimes when there's a hot topic, there's a lot of correspondence. So I just wanted to make clear that occasionally things only get sent to mayor and council and not to me, so then I don't get them and put them in the packet timely unless one of you guys sends them to me. And usually you do, and it works out, but there may have been a couple that slipped by, and so they will be in next week's, even though they have an old date. But if the person sent them to mayor and council, they should be aware that that's good because you got it before you took action on the item. It just might not make a public packet until later. But then even with all the letters, sometimes they come to me and still get missed. So there's another one that also isn't going to make the packet, but it had been sent to mayor and council timely for the action item, so the person should feel secure that at least you did read it. But we try our best to stay on top of correspondence, but when those emails are just flying in, it's hard sometimes. And I think that's about all I had to report. I can answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the city clerk? Hearing none, we'll move on. So we have the staff quarterly reports, the Cordova Harbor and Port fourth quarter, Museum and Cordova Center fourth quarter, Cordova Volunteer Fire Department fourth quarter, and Cordova Police Department fourth quarter. Any comments or questions for staff on those? And correspondence, there's the mayor's letter to MCO regarding our decision at the meeting. And we'll move on to ordinances and resolutions. So the first on the agenda is Resolution 01-2201, a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, providing input to the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, ADEC, on proposed changes to regulations on oil discharge prevention and contingency plans. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion, Allison, and a second, Baylor. To your motion, Mr. Allison.
Yeah, this resolution, if we recall, was brought to us by our RCAC representative, Mr. Beadle, and they worked on it, and I think there's some things in there that need to be kept our eye on, so I support it.
And Councilman Baylor.
No comment. I support it.
Okay, and we'll start on the phone. Councilman Schaefer, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm also in support of this resolution, and I'm really glad that our representative Beadle brought it to our attention. Yeah, the RCAC is a really good resource for the community, so I'm glad they're keeping an eye on these things and bringing them to our attention when needed.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Meyer.
I would just echo the comments that Councilmember Schaefer brought up. I'm also in support.
Okay, and we'll go around the room. Councilman Gleason.
In favor, and I'd just say that the unannounced exercises are the best.
And I too am in favor of this. So do we do roll call with people on the phone?
Sure.
Okay.
So on Resolution 01-2201, Tom Baylor,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Jeff Gard is absent, Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Resolution 01-2202, a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the participation of its employees in the Public Employees Deferred Compensation Plan of Alaska and the payment of the required contributions pursuant to AS 39.45 ETSEQ. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, thank you. I have a motion, Councilman Baylor, and a second
I'll yield.
to Schaefer. Okay. So, Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the city manager had more information on this. I understand that this always has been an option available, but the city had gone with had used a different option before, and so I was wondering timing-wise, why now, or if this will save money or be better benefits for our employees. So just a little background would be helpful.
Sure. So the city has always had given our employees the opportunity to participate in a deferred compensation plan as one of its benefits. And the plan that we've had has moved around a little bit and is currently residing with the ICMA, which is the nationwide city management association that provides not only technical advice, but programs and services to city managers and city governments. The state, not too long ago, opened up the opportunity for employees of political subdivisions of the state, of which the city of Cordova is one, to participate in their 457B deferred comp plan. And I think earlier managers perhaps just felt like that was just more work than they wanted to go through. But we've been evaluating our employee compensation and programs that we can offer and feel that this one extends a greater benefit to employees because it consolidates all employees' retirement savings in one place, whether it's PERS, which is the public employee retirement system, or the deferred comp plan. And it allows them to see in one statement and move monies around in a way that is really beneficial to employees. It's no additional cost to city. It's the only thing we have to do is go through a formal process. The state has asked us to provide them with the resolution of approval from council before we can engage in this new opportunity for employees. So this is presented to you just with just general information, but again, no cost to city itself, but a benefit in the ease of use for employees and better investment because it's invested in the same way as the PERS plans are, and that's using guidance from the Permanent Fund Corporation. So I think the returns and the ease of use make it a really viable benefit for employees, and I ask for your approval.
Any questions on the phone? Any questions, comments in the room? I have one, actually. Helen, does this replace then ICMA, RC?
Yes.
Yeah, so, and does that have anything to do with its rebranding as Mission Square Retirement?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. If it was Mission Round, I might have kept them
And does it
square.
It does not affect any employees who have retired and still have
No,
council?
no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, roll call, Susan.
On Resolution 122-2, Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Jeff Guard is absent. David Gleason.
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
David Allison.
Yes.
Tom Baylor.
Yes.
Melina Meyer.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Vice Mayor, I move to dispose of portion of Lot 2, Block 7A, Tidewater Development Park, as outlined in Cordova Municipal Code 5.22.060 by number 2, request sealed bids, requesting sealed proposal to lease the property.
Second, thank you, Councilman Schaefer. Councilman Baylor, to your motion.
Oh, I think I just want to stay consistent. I think all properties should have, the community should have an opportunity to look at these properties. And that's why I always say we should go out for sealed bids. I have also, over the years, many times, even statements by sitting council people and others said that this building will be torn down. It's past its lifetime. So I was surprised to see that it's being recommended for another use. But also goes to the fact that that's why it needs to go out to the general public, because maybe the public wasn't aware that evidently there is some useful life left in the building, and we are looking to do that. So to be fair to everybody, I think it needs to go out for sealed bids, and I've got some other comments, but I'll let others speak to that part of it.
Councilman Schaefer, to your second.
Yeah, I agree with Taylor that this should go out for sealed proposals, fair process, and as he also said that it was thought that perhaps this building wouldn't be used in the future, so maybe people didn't realize that there was an opportunity maybe to go out for lease on the building. So just open it up, see what interest there is in this location. I guess I appreciated that planning and zoning sent it to the harbor so they could get the harbor commission's input to make sure it didn't conflict with any of their plans. And I guess I just did have a question on the timeline. They recommended leasing for, I think it was a 5-year max lease, so shorter term. And so I just want to make sure that doesn't conflict with any potential timelines for the north side of the harbor, like any renovations or improvements on that side. Especially now with that aggressive plan for the South Harbor being substantial completion by April 2023.
Well, as you were speaking, the city planner came to the front of the room, so he's ready to answer your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so currently we have not secured any funding to do anything on the north side or that north portion of the harbor where this building is occupying. That's the whole point that the Harbor Commission and the Planning Commission made, that 5 to 7 years is about the appropriate time frame for us to start going out, do some master plan updates for the harbor, to see what that north side needs to look like to accommodate all different uses. And then once the plan is figured out, then figuring out the funding sources and that. So there's no point in having a building sit empty, but let's also make sure that we're not blocking ourselves in somewhere, because it is going to be at least another 5 to 7 years probably.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Councilman Schaefer?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Councilman Meyer, comments?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the best use of this building is in the short term. I can agree with requesting proposals at this time. I do have some concerns with the building. I would like to know a little bit about its safety, where it's at. I've heard too that it just needs to be teared down. Also, parking is another concern for whatever use that this building is under. I think parking would be another consideration. So parking and safety for the building and for the public, I think, would be information I would be interested in before voting to give a lease option to any proposal. And then, kind of for clarification, I wasn't sure if the main motion was option 2 or 3, if it was sealed bid versus proposals. I think I heard bids and proposals go out there, so I just wanted a clarification of what the main motion was.
I'll defer to the motion maker, but I believe it was number 2, requesting sealed proposals to lease or purchase the property.
Not or purchase.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, proposals, yeah. Number 2.
The motion was number 2, and or purchase was deleted from that sentence. So it was just to lease the property.
Does that clarify?
That does. I just wasn't sure if it was sealed bid or proposals. So that's clear. So that's, and I am in support of that. But I am doing so with a lot of reservations about the status of that building and really what the best use of it would be in the short term. Thanks.
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I'll support going out for RFPs, because that doesn't really commit us to anything except getting what people's ideas are for that. But I think I heard the planner say that we would start figuring things out in 5 to 7 years. But I think PND has got a pretty good, and the Harbor Commission has a pretty good idea of a lot of remodeling of the North Harbor. But we need to now be working on what our long-term plan is for that, whether that's a fuel dock or whatever. If you remember when the science centers did their last lease, they weren't moving out because the building was going to crap. They were moving out because we weren't going to lease it for any longer, because we said we needed that property for our harbor renovations. So that kind of pushed them into their new venture that they're on, which is going to be a great thing for them and the city. But I think we need to make sure that the lease term is short enough We just heard tonight that this whole project, we just got awarded 20 million a couple months ago, and we're talking about being finished with the project a year and a couple months from now. It can move pretty fast with the transportation or infrastructure money that's out there, and all the leftover COVID money and all the money the government has out there that they're looking to spend somewhere. I think there's a lot of good opportunities for us. So I don't want to commit to too long for this for anybody. But I think we need to have a long-term plan. And if in our long-term plan, if our 5-year plan says that we're going to put a fuel dock in and it's going to be around that area, then if we've got the opportunity now to get started on that, then I'm all for that. If there's a place to put a brewery as well, then I'm all for that. Forest Service needs a place to stay. We need to figure out all of these things. The troopers weren't happy with their thing a few years ago, and so anyway, there's a lot of planning that I think needs to be done now, not in 5 or 6 years, but just keep this lease term short. But I'm in favor of going out for the RFPs, but doesn't mean I'm going to approve an RFP.
And Councilman Gleason.
Yeah, I'm sort of, I want to help the brewery out as much as possible, but if we lease this, we're eliminating the possibility of putting a shore site over there. And I'm pretty sure that all of these approaches are going to go away if we secure funding for the sheet pile. So if we have somebody out there and we get the money to sheet pile this whole area, and there's a 5-year lease on that.
The sheet piling doesn't go that far to the.
So that approach is going to stay in the harbor?
From my understanding, unless.
You're not pulling the grid out, the grid that's useless? Wow.
From the drawings I've seen, the sheet piling doesn't go all the way to the.
No, I understand that, but there's going to be like a large area up there from the plans I saw for frontage, for businesses, for parking, because we have no parking there right now. We park and we're in the street.
That is correct. We are planning on doing a lot of work over there with our conceptual drawing that we have. We have no plans to pull that approach out. We just spent an awful lot of money to replace and redeck all that.
So what's it going to be?
Still a usable grid. Still a usable grid, and that's what planning, like Mr. Allison was saying, is that we do need to start planning.
So with all that in there, you got no access to what's behind it, I guess, is what I'm saying. There's a lot of space between there and Breakwater Avenue.
Yeah, and
we would probably want to do something back there.
And that was what I was saying, was we need to start taking these next couple of years to do the planning for how should this all be redesigned and laid out so that it, flows the best for the functions of the harbor that are needed. And then that way we get started on the planning in the next couple of years. Then we get the funding, within a few years after that planning. And then by then we're coming to the end of a 5 or 7 year period, and we would transition them out as we then transition to reconstructing.
I hear what you're saying, but I suspect, and Helen didn't really touch on it in her comments, but there is port funding in the infrastructure bill that we might have access to faster. We may be getting money faster. So I guess all I'm saying is we need to take a breath on this, and I would rather not make a decision on this right this second. That's my thinking, because I think if we, or do a very short-term lease, which I don't think would be very appealing to the brewers because they're going to be putting all their stuff in there. So what about I realize there's a building there, which is probably what makes it better, but it'd just be nice if we had other options. For me, I just don't like getting us hamstrung, because I'll bet you anything that gets removed to make access and to to have full use of that area instead of that whole, that's, I don't know how many acres that is that we don't have access to behind it, but if we get the money for the sheet pile, I guess we'd be in trouble. And we had a 5-year lease.
I see lots of hands. I'll yield to the city manager first, and then go back to Mr. Baylor.
Sure. I just wanted to address the whole funding thing. Obviously, city employees are very actively looking for funding for everything. There was a grant that was submitted and was declined. It was the PID grant, and that did provide some resources to provide sheet piling on the front, on the north side, and do some other improvements. But what is lacking at this moment in time, and I think we all agree, is we don't have a plan. I think, you know, in fairness to everyone, we've had a little bit of tunnel vision because we know we were resource poor. We didn't have money, so we weren't thinking broadly and thinking ahead. So now that all this money's on the table, we can't apply unless we have ready projects, shovel-ready projects. We're fortunate that the Harbor South Side plan was in play. And now we're scrambling, and Kevin, thankfully, and the Harbor team employees and the Harbor Commission and the Planning Commission are all actively looking ahead and going, whoa, we've got some work to do, and we want to give them some time to do that. So I think some of the questions that you're asking, we will be actively pursuing answers for, you know, over the next few months, you know, even. And so maybe this is premature at this moment in time for those that feel like we need a better direction on the plans for the North Harbor, but we don't have those right now. And I think everyone understands that the kind of conceptual plans that are on the ground are not complete enough for us to do anything, and there probably is opportunity for improvement. So with that, I just wanted to share that we don't have those projects in a place where we can apply for funding yet.
Okay, Councilman Baylor for your second.
Yeah, well, I had to smile when you said we don't have shovel-ready projects, but we've had a company the last several years wants to put a fuel dock in that harbor. That's kind of shovel-ready, I would think. But I think another thing to think about that existing building is it's going to be a tremendous cost to the city of Cordova to tear that down. And it's getting to that point. So I think part of my thought is, you know, if there was a proposal to put something in there, if they were covering the cost of tearing it down or developing, that would be a bonus for the city. But keep that in mind too. That thing, doesn't matter how much rent you get for it, it's going to cost way more to tear it down. And it's going to have to come down at some point. There are other issues with, you know, the idea of a brewery being there. We'd have to change some city code because you can't drink on city property. Obviously, that can be handled. There's parking issues that need to be addressed. There's work that's got to be done on it, and that work would need to be done by licensed contractors, plumbers, electricians. But my vote, I'm tendering on whether to support just going out for an RFP to see, or proposal to see what's out there, or
Okay.
I think, as the manager said, maybe we need to take a step back and make a plan. So.
Okay, Councilman Allison.
Do we know what the Science Center expects their move-out date is?
I believe it's this summer. I'm hearing June, and so I would add 3 months and call it September.
I think the fall of 2023.
So, yeah, I asked that question because I just seeing how, you know, if it sits empty for a couple of months and we don't get a couple of months rent, well, you know, that's one thing. But if it was going to be empty next week and going to be empty for 4 months if we don't do anything, I guess I'm of the opinion that we need to have a plan. We need to have a plan before we get ahead of ourselves, because when the decision was made to limit the lease of the Science Center, that was the plan at that time, was that building was going to go away for harbor renovation. So I don't think it's too awful fair to the Science Center even now to be leasing it out from under them when they're not even out of there yet. So I would move to refer to staff.
Okay.
Let's second that motion.
Oh, can I talk to the first motion?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so
I'll withdraw my second.
thank you. I've been listening, and I know many of you have more history than I do, but I also remember the history of the Science Center building, and I have been paying attention to what the harbor has been putting into their master plan. Nonetheless, I see the Science Center moving out of that building before we have a plan in place. And I am still in favor of going out for sealed proposals. We already know there's some in our coffers, the Shoreside, the No Road Brewery. I don't know what else is out there, but I think that also enables us, the city team and the Harbor Commission, to put together more information as well. And there might be concepts that come back to us that they've never thought about too, and maybe they could incorporate into their planning when they move to the north side. So I will vote in favor if the motion stands. So now, is there a second to Mr. Allison?
I'll second his motion.
Okay.
Speak to my motion.
Okay, Mr. Allison.
Yeah, I just, we're not crunched for time here on this. The Science Center isn't going to be moved out of there before fall. It takes, 60 days to get RFPs back. And of course, whoever does an RFP has to plan. But, if we're talking about a year-to-year lease, that makes a difference on your RFP than if you're going to get the building for 5 or 10 years. 5 or 10 years may not even be enough for a lot of the proposals that we might get if it was a 30-year lease option. So I'd prefer to refer it to staff at this point in time and at least have better timelines to look at for it.
And Councilman Baylor, to your second.
I can go either way. I guess I can go for back staff or see if there's any interest out there. But I think there's been a lack of planning here, and but frankly, I'm a little disappointed with Plan Zoning and the Harbor Commission to give us better direction on this, because putting a business in and then saying, oh, 3 years, 4 years from now, 5 years, hey, you got to leave. That's not an easy thing to do. And, the city manager and the council that's going to have to do that, that'll be a ruckus going for sure. So I'm not sure it's a wise decision and we're not getting that much money on rent that's going to break the coffers. So I guess I'm going to support referring it back to staff.
If I could just clarify one thing about the RFP process. You could go out for RFPs. There's no requirement that you choose any of them. So you could have this same conversation when you get the RFPs back and say, well, now we've seen what is out there. We still don't want to move forward with leasing it. So you could do the RFP process still. And then just follow up on Baylor's last comment. The amount of rent that we're getting from the Science Center is extremely low because that was part of the lease because they're a nonprofit. If it was leased to a commercial entity, we would be getting whatever market rate for the space would be.
Correct. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I guess maybe to clarify, I thought I said it before, but you're going to get very different proposals from people if you have an opportunity for a 1 to 3 year lease than you do if you have a 5 to 10 year lease, or if you had a 30-year lease. You're going to get very different proposals because they've got infrastructure that they've got to put in and all those kind of things. So right now, I would consider a proposal for 1 year leases or a year-to-year lease for up to 5 years, but we're saying we don't have any kind of plan, and maybe we'll have a plan in 5 to 6 years, and maybe we'll get a bunch of money next month from the infrastructure. We just don't know. And we're not in any, I don't think anybody's in any huge hurry to put in a RFP for a month-to-month lease unless somebody's looking for housing. But it would definitely have to be a short-term RFP. So I just think that there's more work to be done on it before we have enough information to really put out a good RFP.
So let's go to the folks on the phone. We're speaking to the amendment to refer back to staff for this motion. Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate Councilman Allison's point about not having a plan, and we would get different proposals for, you know, a 3 to 5 year lease versus something that's longer term. So if it is will of council go back to staff, I mean, I'm fine with that. But I guess I am still in favor of going out for field proposals and just seeing what interest and ideas there are for the lot. I mean, there might be people in town that could use it for, you know, have a short-term vision. So I think it could help the council, help the city, help us all like reimagine the space. And I also do think there's value in having a tenant in the building to keep the building itself just in working order. Have the, you know, someone that's responsible for the building and maintaining it, because that could be a big burden to the city.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Meyer, to the amendment.
Yes. I like the idea of referring it back to staff to give us time to really start thinking about a plan for that North Harbor, that building. Also, the Science Center isn't out of the building yet, so I do think it's a little premature. I could be swayed to have it go out proposals now if that proposal, the period open to receive proposals was very long, so that we have something to look at when we do it. I wouldn't want it to go out to proposals at this time for 30 or even 60 days. I think it would need to be at least 90 and above days, and then maybe the community can put proposals in. Maybe there's nonprofits that want short-term lease to go in there, or anybody, you know, the breweries and gas station, or all of them can put in their proposals too, but maybe it gives us more time for the community to come up with some other ideas and other people to put proposals in, for us to maybe look at a plan. People can be maybe a little more into the process in that way. So I really can go either way, but I do think that this is all a little premature about making this work.
Okay. Does anyone have anything new to add to the discussion on the amendment? I think we should vote on the amendment.
The motion to refer.
Refer back to staff.
Okay. On the motion to refer to staff, Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Gard is absent. David Gleason,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
No.
David Allison,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
No.
Motion carries 4-2.
So I probably should have asked this before you voted. What are you referring back to? Like, what would you like? Do you want us to begin a planning process for the North Harbor? Do you want us to start looking into the process and costs associated with doing the studies that are required for that? Like, what do we mean by refer back to staff?
Very good question, and that is why I voted no, because as staff, you used to sit there and wonder what the heck council wanted. So, Councilman Allison, you go first, and we're going to go around the room.
I thought I was clear about what I want. I want a better timeline. I want to start the planning process, like you said. If it's going to cost us money to evaluate the structure of that building and the cost of demolition or whatever other numbers you can come up with, how long is it going to take you to plan? What is the term of RFP that you're looking to go out for? Are you looking for a 1 to 3 year, a year to year for 5 years, 5 year hard lease? Because I don't want to lock us into anything with the way money flies around in this current government that we've got here. I won't support anything that's very long term. But we need a plan for what's going to be in that harbor. And the Harbor Commission, I think, has a pretty good idea of, we spent a lot of years, and I think PND spent some time on the North Harbor as well. So anyway, that's what I'm looking for. A better timeline, a timeline for the RFP, any costs that it's going to have for us. If we get a better idea of when the Science Center thinks that they're maybe going to go, they're going to have their windows in by June. I'll tell you that right now. So anyway, those are the kind of things that I'm looking for.
Does anyone else on council want to weigh in? Councilman Gleason.
It'd be nice to see what the finished North Harbor plan looks like, where the sheet pile goes in and stuff. I think we saw that once already, but I don't have it anymore, but I'd like to see that so that we get an idea of the potential, that's going to exist once that's finished. So I'd like to see that. Because we've been talking about getting rid of the Science Center building, for years. We can't wait to get rid of it, and now we're going to, stick somebody in there.
Councilman Baylor.
Sure. Yeah, and it's, as I said here, and I wrote down a note here and showed the city manager, we're going to be doing this harbor job. What do we have in Cordova? We have a lack of housing. There's a bunkhouse for the contractor right there. Any other jobs we have city employees, people come here, there's no housing. So maybe if we're talking about a building that's going to be sitting there for 1 to 5 years, I think we could think outside the box and utilize it. I think putting a business in there that you're going to have to come back to 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and say, hey, you need to move, that's going to be a tough call. So if it's used as a bunkhouse or those kind of things, you're not putting a lot of money into it, you're just utilizing it. But maybe I shouldn't speak for the business, and then I go back to there's absolutely no plan. There wasn't anything submitted from the harbor. What was their thoughts or plans on doing it, other than, well, we don't know for 5 years. I'd like to see a little more detail.
Anyone on the phone have any additional comments to what's already been spoken to?
Yeah, this is Councilman Meyer.
Councilman Meyer.
I started thinking back about the joint session that we had with the planning and zoning board not too long ago, and we kind of talked about the process of out for proposals. So I think this would be a good opportunity to get some of those timelines and communication with the public of how to get involved with these types of leases, sales that we deal with. This building has brought up how a lot of people in Cordova probably have an opinion about this. I know I've heard from community members about this building in the past, and with this issue coming up of, what should it be used for, what it shouldn't be used for. And I think when we go at proposals, we kind of talk about it as like, well, anybody can put a proposal in. But, what if the community just has an idea about this? And this is a very short-term, unique situation, but I think how we deal with property and leases should be really transparent. So as this is referring back to staff, I think this would be a good opportunity to get a timeline and what these proposal processes mean for the community to be able to get involved, and maybe this will get people thinking about what use that building could be used for. And I also agree with Councilor Baylor, like you said, it would be nice to get a little more information from the Harbor Commission and the Zoning and Planning Commission about their concerns about this. Because I happened to listen in on those meetings, so I know it wasn't a quick decision. I know there was just a lot of questions. So I think referring this back to staff is kind of just what I said is timeline and lack of plan. And I think that we need to get this land disposal process a little cleaned up in some manner, or at least just a little more transparent. I think how we're doing it isn't wrong, it's just maybe not clear to everybody in the public, especially.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Meyer. Kevin, does that give you enough to go on?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll work. I will work with the other departments and we'll come up with something and then get back to you here at some point in the future once we have a better idea of what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, the original motion that was on the table, do we need to do anything with that? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Lost track. New and miscellaneous business, discussion of COVID-19 emergency response. Councilman Gleason.
I don't think it's an emergency anymore.
When is the next expiration, I think?
I have no idea.
I don't know either.
Okay, I
I think
don't-
we extended it through the spring, but I need to double check. That's a good question.
Well, and I think Dr. Saunders obviously made it clear that they were working towards demobbing, and
Yeah.
so we could go with their advice as we have through the entire pandemic, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Pending agenda, CIP list, calendar, elected and appointed officials list. Any discussion on that? I believe I saw that there was, I'm sorry, Councilman Allison.
I was just going to say, when are we going to be looking at the tax exemptions, caps, those kind of things are all kind of balled up into one, but
Susan, do you have an update on? We will try to get that for either the next meeting or the meeting right
Listed here
afterwards.
as February 2022,
Okay,
right?
okay, yes,
Is that
so,
what you mean?
yeah, we for the last several meetings, somebody here at the table has suggested we get out on that right away because,
right,
you know, there's projects coming up, there's
yeah, it's on our list.
lots of money being spent and we're not getting our cut, so.
So is that going to be a work session or a discussion item on an agenda? How do you want?
I think,
Want it in front of us. I guess that's my frustration. We've asked for this for several meetings. And all it is a code. I looked it up today. All we needed it for it to be in our packet, and we can have a discussion, and we can look at why is this an exemption, why is this exemption, and we may end up changing things, and we may come back going, all right, there's nothing we can do. But until it sits in front of us, we can't do a thing. Well, that's just put it on the agenda. Get us a copy of it.
So number 8 on the top will be an agenda item on the February 2nd meeting as a discussion item with the ordinance with all the tax exemptions on there. That part of code. Okay.
And then when, you said you just got the audit, is that
Correct.
going to be presented to us at some point in time?
If it's completed and delivered to me in a timely fashion to get it on the agenda for February 2nd, or whatever the date is.
And also that one, sometimes we do that as a work session, sometimes it's just a presentation in the regular meeting. Does anybody have a preference? Because they present it, like
Right.
usually they
The
do.
auditors will present it, and again, they are in the final stages of getting a final audit to us. And just for clarification, that audit will be the first of several items that you guys will be looking at and reviewing around the financials for the city. I know you all had asked about investments and other things, so I will have a comprehensive plan that we will be working through work sessions and other methods in the month of February. So just plan on that being finance month because there'll be a lot of work to be done. So back to Susan's question, it could be done in a work session with the audit and a few other documents that I'll have to share with you around process, or we can just do it at a normal council meeting, and it's certainly at your prerogative.
Maybe we'll look at the length of the agenda and decide. We'll look how the agenda starts shaping up, and if it's looking like a big meeting, we'll do it at
It works.
6
Okay.
instead. So we're going to shoot for 2:02 on that one, but if we don't have everything ready, we'll do that at the 2:16 meeting.
Or we can do a separate work session
Or something
prior to that.
Okay.
Just a
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead. Were you going to speak to that? Or
question out of turn. Have you had any success in getting financial help position? I'm kind of out of order here, but
No, I will share that that has been my focus for the past few weeks. I have actually even shed tears, but I feel really good. Monica Langle from Altman Rogers is back in town from a 3-week vacation. She's on the ground. Dean is coming back to help out with monthly reconciliation so we can get 2021 closed out. I've scheduled the audit for 2021. It will happen in June. And I have contracted with a third-party entity that will provide analytics for you to help you make decisions. They're going to assess 2 years' worth of financials from how we spend money, what our cash flow needs are, so that you know how much cash that we need to have on hand to do our business, how much could be reinvested. They'll look at all of our investments and do an assessment of those things and analyze how we've been performing with our peers. That data will be shared with you all, and it will give you the tools you need to make those decisions around how we move forward from where we are. I have hired them on a year contract so that those assessments will be provided monthly, and we'll give you those tools that you need to make choices, and we'll see if it's worth the investment. It's not a big contract, but it certainly is a tool that I've not had available to me, and I think you haven't had either. So that's the progress to date.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there?
There was one more item. The union contract approval could be at the next meeting, depending on where it's at, or it would be sometime soon after that. Anyway, these are just things I'm going to either bring to the next meeting or add to the pending agenda so you know they're coming.
Yeah.
That's just another one.
And just to provide information for the clerk and the manager, I know many of us are traveling. So does January or February make a lot of conflicts for getting a quorum? Mr. Baylor, are you going to be able to call in?
I should be able to, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Gleason, are you traveling?
Boy, not that I know of. Not till March.
Okay. Councilman Allison?
Not that I couldn't be able to call.
Okay. Anyone on the phone, are you going to be traveling that you won't be able to call in February?
February shouldn't be a problem for me.
That Councilman Schaefer?
Yes, safer.
Okay. And
Did she say shouldn't?
should or shouldn't, Ann?
February should not be a problem
Okay.
for me.
Okay, thank you. And Melina, any problems for February with you?
Nope, February looks good.
Okay, then I guess it's just me. So I will be able to make the meeting on the 2nd. I will not be able to call in after that. I'll be out of the country.
Okay.
And just a quick, again, thank you. Thank you for the heads up for these meetings, Susan. That's, the text was always appreciated.
Got it.
Oh, I forgot.
Sure, Councilman Gleason.
What do we do? We've got addressing on here, city addressing. Just says ongoing projects, summer, fall 21, which are gone now, so.
So addressing is well underway. We're very excited. Kevin is taking the lead. If anyone wants an update, I can ask him to give a quick report.
Yeah, so the addressing project is fully underway right now. We're actually getting close to wrapping up the phase 1, which is the addressing portion of the project. Myself, Paul, and Nate have been going through all of the data, checking addresses, anomalies that have shown up when the consultant that we're using started populating all the addresses. Once those are handled, then we are going to move on to assigning addresses to properties that don't have addresses, as well as clarifying road names so that they match the plats that were created. And then if there's any, if there's any roads that need to be named, I believe there's a process that it has to go through the council, but I'm just haven't got to that portion yet. But the plan is that as we finish this up, we'll be getting done probably mid-February-ish, and then doing the final data check in March, and then March would wrap up when the addressing has been all assigned and finished.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I would suggest along with that, and I'm guilty of this, I think we start enforcing our codes on putting addresses on houses and buildings.
Yeah, that's something that that we're discussing with fire, because we can get them to the general area on a map, but then being able to actually see what structure they need to be going into is a whole other thing. So that is definitely something that needs to start being some public outreach to let people know that it is required and it needs to be done.
Yeah, I'm guilty of it, but I'm just saying that I think along with that, it would be helpful.
Yep.
Don't buy your dresses until we give you an address.
Yes, there's going to be a few cases where some existing addresses are going to have to be modified. We have some cases where we have even on the odd side and stuff like that. So this is going to affect a few people with having to change what their address is.
I know, I am one of them. Okay, is there any reason we cannot remove that, Susan, from the pending agenda?
That would be our decision.
Well,
why? Well, I mean, it's working, it's underway. Why?
Till it gets done, I would prefer it stayed on.
Okay, fine.
Well, it keeps it in front of us.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
It would also provide a good check-in at the end of this first phase, because then we do need to discuss the second phase, which is the implementing of the addressing with the equipment that the first responders are going to need so that this addressing can actually be used by them. So,
right on.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on the pending agenda? So I think that takes us to 15A, which Councilman Baylor requested to discuss the ordinance regarding the 0.5% raw fish tax before we go into executive session. I'm not sure if anyone was.
I'm not sure I'd discuss. I think just
refresh.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Just a refresh on what it is for the viewing public and myself as far as that goes.
I'm not sure any of the staff was prepared for that. Refresh.
Well, I can direct people in the audience and on YouTube if they want to look up chapter 5.41 in the city code and read through it pretty quickly. If they want a little refresher on it, we can recess and I can go print it for all of you if you want it in front of you to look at or talk about. I'm not sure exactly what.
Having a copy. Do
you want to recess for a few minutes and I can make?
So is council in agreement we can take a recess until 9 o'clock? Give the clerk time to get that ordinance in front of us and emailed to the people on the phone.
Okay.
Okay, in agreement, I see consensus. Recessed,
That was a voted on ordinance, correct?
I believe.